At exactly 5:12 a.m., the most powerful man in the city walked into his kitchen, and everything he believed about loyalty, wealth, and justice changed forever. Billionaire Daniel Hart never woke up early. He didn't need to. His life ran like a perfectly programmed machine. Assistants handled schedules, chefs prepared meals, and security protected every corner of his luxury mansion. But that morning, sleep abandoned him, and fate was waiting downstairs, because standing near the kitchen counter was Maria, the quiet maid nobody ever noticed, and on her face were bruises she desperately tried to hide. Within hours, Daniel Hart would make a decision so shocking that employees, business partners, and even the media would struggle to understand why a billionaire would risk everything for a maid. Daniel Hart was known across the business world as the Iron Billionaire. The nickname wasn't given because of his wealth. There were many richer men, but because of his personality. People said Daniel Hart never bent, never hesitated, and never allowed emotions to influence his decisions. At 46 years old, he was the founder and CEO of one of the largest technology companies in America, Hart Dynamics, a corporation that powered financial systems, artificial intelligence platforms, and security networks used across the world. News anchors admired him. Investors trusted him. Competitors feared him. But very few people actually knew him. Business magazines often described Daniel using the same words: brilliant, calculated, untouchable, former. Employees told stories about meetings where Daniel could predict market failures months before they happened. He made decisions quickly, sometimes within seconds, and those decisions almost always proved correct. To Daniel, success was simple. Life followed rules, and rules created control. He believed deeply in three principles: discipline, efficiency, results. Anything outside those three ideas was unnecessary, especially emotions. In his mind, emotions slowed people down. They caused hesitation. They created weakness, and weakness destroyed success. That belief had built his empire, but it had also quietly built walls around his life. Daniel's mansion stood on a hill overlooking the city, a massive glass and steel structure that looked more like a luxury museum than a home. Everything inside was precise. Furniture aligned perfectly. Lights adjusted automatically depending on time of day. Even the temperature changed based on his schedule. Nothing was random. Nothing was loud. Nothing was personal. The house operated like a high-performance machine, and so did the people working inside it. Staff members followed strict routines. Cleaning schedules were timed to the minute. Meals were prepared according to nutritional data. Conversations were minimal unless necessary. Employees respected Daniel, but they rarely felt comfortable around him. When he walked into a room, conversations stopped. Not because he shouted, because he didn't. His calm silence was far more intimidating. Among the many workers in the mansion was Maria. She had been employed there for 2 years. Yet most staff members barely remembered when she started. Maria moved quietly through the house every morning before sunrise. By the time Daniel woke up, the floors shined, the kitchen sparkled, and every surface looked untouched. She never complained, never asked questions, never arrived late, and never drew attention to herself. Her uniform was always neat. A simple black dress with a white collar and apron. Her dark hair remained tied back carefully, as if she wanted to take up as little space as possible. Some employees talked during breaks. Maria didn't. She ate quickly, often alone, then returned to work. To many, she was simply part of the background, like furniture or lighting, necessary, but unnoticed. Daniel himself had spoken to her only twice, once to acknowledge her hiring, and once to request a schedule adjustment. Both conversations lasted less than 30 seconds. In Daniel's structured world, Maria was not a person with a story. She was a function, a role within the system. And systems, to Daniel, existed only to operate smoothly. Daniel rarely woke before 7. His mornings followed a predictable routine: exercise, emails, breakfast, meetings. But on that particular morning, something disturbed his sleep. At 5:12 a.m., his eyes opened suddenly. No alarm, no noise, just a strange restlessness he couldn't explain. He lay still for a moment, staring at the ceiling. The house was unusually quiet. For reasons he didn't understand, he decided to go downstairs himself instead of calling for coffee. It was a small decision, one that would change multiple lives. The kitchen lights were already on. Soft yellow light reflected off polished marble counters. Daniel stepped inside, expecting to find the chef preparing breakfast. Instead, he saw Maria standing near the sink. She hadn't noticed him yet. Her posture seemed tense, shoulders slightly hunched as if she were trying to disappear into the room. When she finally sensed movement, she turned quickly, too quickly. Her elbow struck a glass resting near the counter. It fell. The sound shattered the silence as crystal exploded across the marble floor. Maria gasped. "I'm sorry, sir," she said immediately, her voice trembling. She dropped to her knees without hesitation, gathering broken pieces with shaking hands. The reaction was automatic, practiced, almost fearful. Daniel stopped walking. Something felt wrong. Not the broken glass. The way she moved. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her breathing was uneven, and she refused to look at him. Daniel observed people for a living. Negotiations, partnerships, corporate deals. His success depended on reading behavior others ignored. And Maria's behavior triggered something instantly. She was hiding something. "Stop," Daniel said calmly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried authority. Maria froze. A shard of glass remained in her hand. Slowly, she placed it down. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Look at me." There was a pause. A long one, as if the request itself frightened her. Finally, she lifted her head, and the morning light revealed what she had tried so hard to hide. Dark bruises colored her cheek. Faint marks wrapped around her wrist. One side of her face showed swelling beneath carefully applied makeup. Daniel's mind immediately began searching for explanations. Accident, fall, illness. But none of them matched what he saw. His expression changed. Not anger, not sympathy, just pure confusion. Because this situation did not fit into his controlled world. "What happened to you?" he asked. Maria's eyes lowered instantly. "Nothing, sir," she said quietly. "I slipped." The answer came too fast, too rehearsed. Daniel felt a familiar certainty, the same instinct that warned him before failed business deals. She was lying. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The refrigerator hummed softly in the background. Outside, the sky slowly shifted from darkness to early dawn. Daniel studied her carefully. He noticed details he had never paid attention to before. The exhaustion beneath her eyes, the way she held her arm protectively, the fear hidden behind politeness. And suddenly, something unfamiliar stirred inside him. Discomfort. Because this was not a business problem he could solve with numbers. This was human. Messy, unpredictable. Exactly the kind of situation he avoided. Maria stood waiting, clearly expecting dismissal. Perhaps punishment for breaking the glass. Instead, Daniel asked another question. "Did someone do this to you?" Her silence answered louder than words. She shook her head quickly. "No, sir," but her voice broke slightly. Daniel felt certainty settle in. He had built billion-dollar companies by recognizing deception in seconds. And this was one of the clearest lies he had ever seen. For the first time in years, Daniel Hart realized something unsettling. Inside his perfectly controlled world, something was terribly wrong, and he had almost never noticed. Daniel dismissed the rest of the kitchen staff. The room became silent. Maria stood nervously, expecting to be fired for causing trouble. Instead, Daniel pulled out a chair. "Sit," he said. She looked shocked. No employee had ever sat in front of him before. "I'm fine, sir," she insisted. "You're not," he replied. His voice wasn't harsh, just certain. Minutes passed before she finally spoke. Her story came out slowly. Maria lived with her younger brother and an abusive stepfather. After, their mother passed away. The man controlled everything: money, documents, even where she worked. Every month, Maria's salary disappeared before she could use it, and when she resisted, the bruises appeared. Daniel listened silently. Something unfamiliar stirred inside him. Anger. Not business anger. Personal anger. He remembered his own childhood. A poor home, a violent father, nights spent protecting his younger sister. Memories he had buried beneath success. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt powerless. "Why didn't you go to the police?" he asked. Maria lowered her eyes. "He said no one would believe someone like me." The words hit Daniel harder than expected, because he knew society often believed power, not truth. That same morning, Daniel canceled all meetings. His executives were stunned. Stock investors waited online. News interviews were postponed. Something unprecedented was happening. Daniel called his head of security. "I want full protection. Arranged for one of our employees," he said. Within hours, Maria and her brother were moved to a safe apartment. Legal advisors were contacted. Medical care was arranged privately. Staff whispered across the mansion. Why would a billionaire do this? Some assumed publicity, others thought scandal. But Daniel gave no explanation. When Maria realized what he had done, tears filled her eyes. "You don't have to do this, sir," Daniel answered quietly. "Yes, I do." Because deep down, he understood something he had ignored for years. Success meant nothing if you looked away from suffering happening right in front of you. That evening, security footage captured Maria's stepfather arriving angrily at the mansion gates. He demanded money, threatened lawsuits, shouted accusations. Daniel personally walked outside. Employees watched from windows, stunned. The billionaire faced the man calmly. "You will never come near her again," Daniel said. The man laughed. "You think money makes you powerful?" Daniel replied coldly. "No, choices do." Police arrived minutes later. Charges were filed and, for the first time in years, Maria felt safe. News eventually leaked. Headlines spread quickly. Billionaire protects Maid from abuse. Some praised him. Others criticized him for interfering in private matters. But Daniel didn't care. Something inside him had changed. He began noticing employees differently. The gardener supporting 3 children. The driver studying at night. The chef sending money overseas. For years he had seen workers as roles. Now he saw stories. One evening, Maria thanked him again. "You saved my life," she said. Daniel shook his head. "No, you reminded me what life is." He confessed something surprising. Despite wealth, he felt empty for years. Success had built walls around him. Helping her broke those walls. Inspired by the experience, Daniel launched a company foundation supporting domestic workers facing abuse. Legal, aid. Emergency housing, education programs. Within months, thousands received help. Employees who once feared him now respected him deeply, not because he was powerful, but because he cared. 6 months later, Daniel held a company event. Executives expected a business announcement. Instead, Maria stood beside him on stage. The audience murmured in confusion. Daniel spoke. "For years, I believed leadership meant control. I was wrong." He paused. "Leadership means protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Then came the shocking moment. Daniel announced a new policy. Every employee, from executives to cleaning staff, would receive equal access to health care, legal support, and education funding. The crowd erupted in applause. Many were in tears. Maria, once invisible, became the symbol of change. Her brother started college through the foundation. She began studying management, encouraged by Daniel himself. Years later, she would become director of the very foundation that started with one early morning encounter. That morning at 5:12 a.m., a billionaire didn't just notice bruises. He noticed humanity. And sometimes, the smallest act of attention creates the biggest transformation. Because true wealth is not measured by what you own, but by whose life becomes safer because you cared. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to think about it. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need power. It just needs courage. What would you have done if you were in Daniel's place? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next powerful story. Thank you for watching, and remember, one small act of humanity can change someone's entire life. See you in the next story.